So there are 12 towns on this list, and every single one of them used to matter. Like, genuinely matter. People built houses there, raised kids there, spent their whole lives there thinking it would last forever. And then something happened. Not a war, not a natural disaster overnight, but something slower and way more brutal than that. One by one, the lights went out. And the wild part? Most of these places didn't even see it coming until it was already too late to do anything about it. Number 1, Centralia. Picture a street where the asphalt cracks open and smoke just leaks out of the ground. Not from a pipe, not from anything you can point to and explain, just out of the earth. Like the ground got tired of pretending everything was fine underneath. Centralia, Pennsylvania had about 1,000 people in 1962. A tight coal mining community where the whole local economy ran on whatever came out of the ground. That year, a trash fire in an old strip mine pit caught an exposed coal seam, and nobody killed it fast enough. Underground coal fires don't stop. They spread slow and invisible through every seam they can reach, and by the time you smell something wrong, the fire's already 3 blocks over. By the 1980s, sinkholes were opening in people's yards, and carbon monoxide was creeping into basements while families slept. A 12-year-old named Todd Domboski fell into a steaming collapse pit in his own backyard and only survived because his cousin grabbed him before he dropped. Let that sink in. A kid, his own backyard. The state bought people out and demolished the houses through the 1980s and 1990s. The zip code got officially revoked in 2002. Route 61, the main road through town, buckled so badly from the heat that PennDOT just abandoned it. And now it's a cracked, graffiti-covered strip of nothing that people drive out specifically to photograph. Fewer than 5 people still live there today, sitting on top of a coal seam with enough fuel to keep burning into the 2200s. Number 2, Cairo. Cairo, Illinois sits right at the tip where the Ohio River dumps into the Mississippi, which on paper makes it one of the best-positioned cities in the entire country. And for a while, it actually was. Civil War staging ground, river trade hub, the city that serious people genuinely believed would become the Chicago of the South. Population hit around 15,000 in the early 1900s, and that wasn't a fluke. That was momentum. Then the railroads shifted their routes, river trade dried up, and Cairo got economically stranded while simultaneously becoming one of the most racially divided small cities in America. A civil rights boycott of white-owned businesses ran for years through the 1960s and 1970s, and it gutted the local economy from both directions. Because white flight accelerated at exactly the same time the boycott was bleeding out whatever commerce remained. By 2020, the population sat around 1,700 people. The downtown is mostly empty buildings with broken windows and roofs that gave up. The Public Housing Authority got so badly mismanaged that the federal government stepped in and took over operations, which is not a thing that happens to cities that are doing fine. And then there's the water. Cairo sits in a flood zone, and in 2011, the Army Corps of Engineers deliberately blew up a levee upstream to flood Missouri farmland rather than let the Mississippi swallow Cairo whole. No hospital operates inside city limits anymore. The school district lost so many students it couldn't survive on its own and merged with another county entirely. Number 3, Gary. Gary, Indiana wasn't a town that happened to get a steel mill dropped in it. U.S. Steel literally built the city in 1906 on sand dunes along Lake Michigan, which means the town existed to serve the mill, not the other way around. And for a while, that arrangement worked out fine. By the 1960s, Gary had close to 180,000 people, department stores, movie theaters, and a tax base fat enough to actually pay for things. It was also the birthplace of Michael Jackson, which the city still mentions constantly because, honestly, what else are you going to lead with at this point? Then foreign steel started undercutting American prices in the 1970s, and U.S. Steel started cutting workers, and Gary's economy had absolutely no backup plan because nobody ever built one. The whole city ran on one company's payroll, so when that payroll shrank, everything shrank with it. White flight and redlining piled on through the 1970s and 1980s, and entire neighborhoods just stopped being neighborhoods. By 2020, the population dropped to around 76,000, which is less than 40% of what it once was. Gary now sits on thousands of abandoned structures the city can't afford to tear down or fix up, so they just deteriorate in place. The Old City Methodist Church, the Genesis Convention Center. These are massive buildings slowly losing their roofs while the city watches and does the math and comes up short every single time. Number 4, body. Most ghost towns get bulldozed, turned into theme parks, or at least cleaned up enough to feel safe for tourists. Body, California got none of that. California just left it exactly where it was, which makes it genuinely one of the strangest places you can walk through in this country. At its peak around 1879, Bodie had roughly 10,000 people and everything a boomtown needed. Hotels, saloons, a red light district, a Chinatown, and a murder rate that put it among the most violent places in the entire American West. Not exactly the kind of town you'd bring your family to, but people came anyway because the gold was real. The gold ran out faster than anyone wanted to admit. Fires tore through what was left in 1892 and again in 1932. And the last full-time residents walked out in the 1940s. California turned it into a state historic park in 1962 and adopted something called arrested decay, which means they stabilize the structures just enough to stop them from fully collapsing. But they don't restore anything, don't repaint anything, don't move a single object. So what you actually find when you walk through Bodie is a half-eaten can of food still sitting on a kitchen shelf, a pool table in a saloon, a child's shoe on a bedroom floor, the curtains rotted in the exact windows they were hanging in when the last person left. Nobody staged any of it. That specific kind of unease you'd feel walking through there isn't something a restored historical site can fake. Number 5, Thurmond. Thurmond, West Virginia is technically still an incorporated town, still has a functioning Amtrak stop, and has a total population somewhere between 5 and 7 people. Not 500. 5, like the number of fingers on one hand. In the early 1900s, Thurmond was a coal shipping hub on the New River Gorge that processed more freight than Cincinnati. Cincinnati, a major American city, and Thurmond was moving more stuff through its train yard, which makes sense once you look at a map and realize the geography turned it into a natural bottleneck for everything coming out of the coal fields. The town ran 24 hours a day at its peak, hotels and banks and money moving constantly, trains coming through at all hours because there was always another load to ship and always another deal happening somewhere on that main street. Then diesel locomotives replaced steam engines in the 1930s, and that's where it all fell apart. Steam engines needed water stops, and Thurmond's geography made it a perfect water stop. Diesel engines don't need water stops, so overnight, the entire reason Thurmond existed in that specific spot just stopped mattering. The National Park Service now manages most of the town as part of New River Gorge National Park, which means the rangers who work there actually outnumber the people who live there. The Amtrak Cardinal still stops twice a week in each direction, so you could theoretically ride a train in from New York and step off onto a platform where the last hotel closed decades ago, and every storefront on the main street sits completely empty behind preserved glass windows. Number 6, Peacher. Kids played on 70-foot piles of gray, gravelly mine waste in Peacher, Oklahoma. Not sandcastles, not dirt hills. Lead-contaminated chat piles, which is what the mining industry called the stuff they pulled out of the ground and didn't want. And they left roughly 75 million tons of it sitting across the town like it was someone else's problem. Peacher spent decades as a major zinc and lead mining center, and at its peak around 14,000 people lived there, which felt normal because the jobs were real and the paychecks cleared. The lead and zinc that came out of Peacher went into ammunition used in both World War I and World War II. So the town genuinely helped win 2 wars and got poisoned doing it. By the 1990s, studies found that 34% of children tested in Peacher showed elevated blood lead levels. 1 in 3 kids. Let that sink in. The EPA designated the area a Superfund site back in 1983, But people stayed because they had nowhere to go and no money to get there. A federal buyout program started in the early 2000s, moving about as fast as you'd expect a government program to move. Then on May 10, 2008, an EF4 tornado ripped through what was left of Picher and killed 8 people, and that accelerated everything. By 2009, the town officially disincorporated. Last school closed, last grocery store closed. The chat piles are still sitting there right now, and the EPA cleanup isn't finished. And parts of the ground could collapse at any time because the mining shafts underneath never got filled in. Number 7, Rhyolite. Rhyolite, Nevada had a stock exchange, 3 newspapers, an opera house, running water, electricity, a train station, and a school with 250 kids enrolled. All of that, gone in about 8 years. Gold turned up near Rhyolite in 1904, and the town went from empty desert to 10,000 people by 1908, which is a growth rate that would make Silicon Valley executives genuinely embarrassed. Investors poured money in, banks opened, and a guy named Tom Kelly built an entire house out of 50,000 beer and liquor bottles, which tells you either that people got creative fast out there, or that the drinking was completely out of control. Probably both. But the gold ore wasn't nearly as deep or as rich as the early tests suggested. And by 1908, the major mines were already reporting numbers that made investors nervous. Then the financial panic of 1907 hit. Credit dried up overnight, and the money stopped flowing into Rhyolite faster than you can say bad investment. By 1910, the population collapsed to around 700 people, and by 1920, it sat at essentially 0. The banks shuttered, the trains stopped running, and people didn't just leave. They stripped the buildings down for lumber and materials to use somewhere else. Rhyolite didn't get abandoned so much as it got picked apart. What's left today is the concrete shell of the 3-story Cook Bank building, still standing because nobody wanted to haul stone that far, and Tom Kelly's bottle house, still holding together in the desert like a weird little miracle nobody planned for. Number 8, Kennecott. Kennecott, Alaska is one of those places where you look at a map and the whole story makes immediate sense. Rich copper deposit in a glacier valley so remote that the mining company built a 196-mile railroad through some of the most brutal terrain in North America just to get the ore out. Not a shortcut. A 196-mile railroad. Through Alaska. The Kennecott mines ran from 1903 to 1938, pulling out around $200 million worth of copper, which converts to well over $3 billion today, making it one of the most profitable mining operations in American history per square foot of ground used. And the company didn't share that wealth loosely. The Kennecott Copper Corporation owned every single building in town, the hospital, the school, the recreation hall, the housing, everything. Workers bought from company stores, lived under company rules, and existed inside a system the company controlled from top to bottom. You weren't a resident. You were an asset. When the copper ran out in 1938, the company gave workers a few days' notice, loaded the equipment it wanted onto the last trains, and left. The buildings stayed because demolishing them cost more than walking away. The last train pulled out on November 10, 1938, and nobody came back. Because the climate up there is cold and dry, the buildings didn't rot the way they would anywhere with actual humidity. They just sat in the glacier valley for decades, slowly falling apart but still completely recognizable. The 14-story ore mill is still standing, still painted red, in a valley where the last worker left over 85 years ago. Number 9, Buxton. Buxton, Iowa doesn't fit anywhere near the pattern of every other town on this list. And that's exactly why it's here. Because Buxton wasn't just a town that died. It was a town that proved something real about how Americans could actually live together. And then it vanished before anyone outside of Iowa even knew it existed. From roughly 1900 to 1920, the Consolidation Coal Company ran a mining town in the middle of Iowa with a majority black population. Read that sentence again. Majority black population in Iowa. And black workers there didn't get shuffled into some segregated corner of town either. They held skilled positions, ran businesses, and lived in the same neighborhoods as white workers, which in the early 1900s was so far outside the norm it almost doesn't seem real. Black doctors operated practices there. Black lawyers took cases. Black and white kids went to the same schools and used the same YMCA at a time when Jim Crow ran most of the South and de facto segregation was doing basically the same job across most of the North. Buxton wasn't a utopia, but it was genuinely different from almost everywhere else in America at the time. So, what killed it? Nothing dramatic. The coal seams thinned out in the 1910s. The company shifted operations elsewhere. Workers followed the jobs, and by 1923, the town was empty. No disaster, no violence. The company left, and the community dissolved with it. The town site is farmland now. Nothing's left standing. Number 10, St. Elmo. St. Elmo, Colorado gets more visitors every year than it ever had residents when it was actually alive, which is either a great second act or the weirdest possible kind of irony, depending on how you look at it. At its peak around 1880, St. Elmo had about 2,000 people, a full main street, a school, multiple hotels, and a newspaper. The Alpine Tunnel ran nearby, the highest railroad tunnel in North America at the time, and that made St. Elmo a supply hub for every mine in the surrounding mountains. Then the gold and silver veins thinned out through the 1880s and 1890s, and the railroad pulled out completely in 1922, which was basically a death certificate for any mountain mining town that depended on it. Most people left fast, but not Annabelle Stark and her brother Tony, and no, not that Tony Stark, though the name collision is genuinely funny every time. Those two ran the general store and just stayed, holding down a ghost town for decades because they didn't want to go anywhere else. Annabelle died in 1960, Tony in 1971, and after that, the place sat completely empty. The dry mountain air preserved the wooden buildings better than anyone would have expected, so St. Elmo today still has 40 to 50 structures standing, some with original furniture and merchandise still sitting right where someone left it 100 years ago. And that's the weird part about St. Elmo. You're not visiting a preserved town. You're visiting the evidence of one, which isn't really the same thing at all. Number 11, Monowai. Monowai, Nebraska has exactly one resident, not 100. One. A woman named Elsie Eiler, who is simultaneously the mayor, the town clerk, the librarian, and the only taxpayer in a municipality that Nebraska's state records still recognize as a real functioning town. Monowai peaked around 150 people in the 1930s, a small farming and railroad community in Boyd County that ran the same way hundreds of similar Nebraska towns ran back then. The railroad left, farming got mechanized and needed fewer bodies, young people drifted toward cities, and the population just slowly bled out over 50 years, one family at a time, until Elsie and her husband Rudy were the last two people standing. Rudy ran a tavern there for years, and when he died in 2004, Elsie kept it open. She also grants herself a liquor license every single year, which means she fills out the permit application as the owner and then approves it as mayor. That's genuinely the most efficient government process in America, and it's happening in a town with a population of 1. Rudy also spent his life collecting books, around 5,000 of them. And Elsie keeps that library open on the main street of a town where she's the only person who'll ever walk through the door. Monowai never burned. Nobody poisoned it. No company locked the doors and caught the last train out. It just quietly emptied over decades, the way a room empties after a party winds down and everyone drifts home without saying goodbye. Number 12, Glen Rio. Glen Rio sits exactly on the New Mexico-Texas state line, which means half the town is in one state and half is in another. And when Interstate 40 bypassed Route 66 in the early 1970s, both states apparently decided the other one was responsible for whatever happened to it. Nobody wrote that down anywhere. Nobody had to. They just both looked away at the same time. During Route 66's heyday from the 1930s through the 1960s, Glen Rio was a real stop with gas stations, motels, and diners that stayed busy because the traffic never stopped. There was a bar sitting right on the state line where the owner physically moved the bar stools to whichever side had looser liquor laws depending on how local elections went. That's not folklore. That's documented local business strategy. And honestly, respect. The town never topped 30 to 40 permanent residents. But it didn't need more than that because the highway did the heavy lifting. When Interstate 40 opened a few miles away, the traffic disappeared practically overnight, and every single business closed within a few years. No traffic, no money, no town. Simple math. But what really finished Glen Rio off was the state line. The Texas side gets no county road maintenance because Deaf Smith County decided it wasn't worth budgeting for. And the New Mexico side has its own set of jurisdictional headaches, so the roads just deteriorate with nobody clearly on the hook for fixing them. The gas stations, the motel, the diner, they're all on the National Register of Historic Places now, which gets you a plaque but not $1 toward keeping the roof from caving in. 12 towns, 12 different ways to disappear. Fire underground, lead in the groundwater, a highway that moved 3 miles east, a copper company that loaded the last train and never looked back. The causes are all over the place, but the result is identical. Places where people built entire lives that are now either empty, toxic, or down to one person who signs her own liquor permit. And none of them saw it coming until it was already done. By then, the people with options had already left, which means the people without options absorbed the worst of it. That's not bad luck.